Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2019 and a brand new experiment today where we're going to see what would happen if every team in the Premier League went absolutely bankrupt. Now the way this will work is for each of the 20 teams in the Premier League, we have gone into the club and changed their finances so they all have about minus £700 million. So you can see Arsenal here, still got an enormous transfer budget. I mean that's what, 30 million? So not that enormous. But they've got a 30 million transfer budget, even though they've got minus 740 million in the bank. The reason I haven't put that to minus 1 billion is because when you put it to that level, the debt is so big that the number counter kind of cuts off a little bit after £1 billion. I think it's like 1,300,000 or something like that. And then it goes into a positive figure. Which defeats the point of what we're trying to do. So I thought if I set it at 700 million, it gives them a season or two in which to spend 300 million more than they make. So that's kind of what we're aiming for there, but that's not the only change that we've made. If I make myself the manager of Arsenal, then you will see from the finances, hopefully, just write Ars in there, that'll come up. There we go. Unai Emery is sacked. I'm now the manager of Arsenal. If we go to their finances screen, then you can see that they've got £714 million negative balance. Their profit this year is minus 600 million because of the change that I've made. But if we look at their debt and loans, they've got a net debt of £1.9 billion. That's the million mark, that's the billion mark. So they're £2 billion in debt. They've got a £1 billion bank loan, 730 million remaining. And they've got some other debt apparently, or I guess that's just the current account debt as well of minus 700 million. So their debt is absolutely enormous, but I've also changed it so that their income has significantly diminished. I think they normally get about, well, you can see that they had £100 million come in last month. They're going to get nowhere near that now. Any income stream for any Premier League club that was over about £10 million I have removed. So for the likes of Man City, Liverpool, Man United, they're not getting those 250, £500 million kit and sponsorship deals that they were getting before. And I've done this for every single club in the Premier League. So if we have a quick look at some of the other clubs in here, like Bournemouth, you can see that from their club details, their finances also, well, that one's gone down, but they are all corrected for minus 700 million. If we go down to Brighton and Hove Albion, and their finances minus 700 million, and they are all set to the same kind of level of minus 700 million, and they've all got the £1 billion of debt as well. So their income streams are cut off. They've got £1 billion of debt on the books and a minus 700 million pound overdraft. It's a huge change. What I'm hoping to see is some of the big clubs really struggle. I'm hoping some of the championship clubs that come up will be able to break into hopefully the top of the half of the table, maybe the top four, before some of the big teams start to recover their finances, get new income streams, because they will get new sponsors, they will do well out of the Champions League, and they will also get new owners. All of the sugar daddies have been removed from the game as well, so there shouldn't be any kind of owners able to pump a lot of money into the club because they've all had their sugar daddy status removed. So it's only really a new owner coming in that should be able to bring their finances back. But I think that a lot of these clubs will probably go out and sign new sponsorship deals. That's the problem. But we'll have to see what comes out of that. So for now, I don't think there's much else to say. I don't think it's going to be a big experiment. I think it'll probably just be a two-parter. But let me know in the comments if there's anything you want to see next time. And make sure to drop a like on the video if you're enjoying the idea behind this experiment. And subscribe to the channel if you're new. But let's go forward now about 5 years. And we'll just go one season at a time, actually. Let's go 1 year ahead. See the big transfers. See how things are happening in real time. And then we'll skip forward a little bit further into the future. Well, we are 1 year into the future, and as you can see from the table, it's not actually that surprising because every team has been placed in the same position. It will be the existing players that have carried them to where they finished up. So you can see Manchester City still won the league, 87 points, just 2 goals clear of Liverpool. They did also win more games throughout the season. Arsenal finishing in 3rd, 75, Spurs in 4th. And then Man United and Chelsea rounding out the top 6. Newcastle finishing up in 7th is a pretty good result for them. And the other teams all really struggling. You can see Fulham, Cardiff, Huddersfield, Watford, Wolves, Crystal Palace and Everton all had 9 points deducted for falling into administration. So that is 7 Premier League teams getting placed into administration in the same season. The 3 that got relegated all suffered. Watford, Crystal Palace, Wolves, Everton, and I think that's all of them, isn't it? So the teams that all got their minus 9 point deduction finished down there. But even above that, Bournemouth did well, would have been safe of relegation anyway. These clubs were all just really struggling for their cash. But Fulham, Cardiff and Huddersfield, the teams to get relegated. Now if we have a quick look at the transfer screen for the previous season, you can see Manchester City still went and spent £36 million. Very few clubs actually offloading big name players. Gini Wijnaldum going from Liverpool to Man City. Everton had to flog quite through. Idrissa Gueye went, Richarlison went, and Bernard went. That brought in nearly 100 million for them. There's a few players from Crystal Palace who went on the go. Sacco, Mihailovic, MacArthur, Tompkins. That's because they both were placed into administration. But Man United made a signing of nearly £20 million, and they haven't had really any players go out that I can see here. Certainly not for any major cash. If we just have a look, quite a lot of players going out on loan, but they're all obviously reserve players who wouldn't have got into the team, and nobody going out on a free, which is interesting. So the big teams here not getting rid of anyone from what I can see. If we have a look at Manchester City and their transfer history for last season, they went out and spent nearly 60 million and they raised nothing in transfers. Just flick through some of these. You can see Man United spent about 27 million, nothing going out of the club except for Marcus Rojo. Newcastle still spent £10 million. So these clubs still dishing out cash despite not actually being in the black, which is interesting. Now if we have a look at Spurs here, they spent 10 million, but they did bring a bit of cash in. They brought in sales of Moussa Sissoko and Vincent Janssen. When we look at their club details and their finances, they're still down in the red, but they've somehow had £700 million wiped off their current account, which does take me by surprise a little bit. If we look at the landmarks here, you can see they've won the Champions League. Spurs have won the Champions League despite being in nearly £2 billion of debt. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever to me. I don't know how they've done that. I have no idea what's happened to their finances. They don't have a source of income big enough to achieve this. And I think if we look at some of the other clubs here, especially the big ones, going up to the likes of Manchester United, and look at their club details, their finances. So Manchester United, interestingly, I think do have £355 million in the black, and yet they're still spending cash. They still seem to have money coming in from somewhere, which doesn't make a lot of sense. They've not had a new owner come into the club. Zinedine Zidane now the manager. Manchester City, again, if we look at their club details, they've got minus £177 million of debt. So even they've cleared away £600 million of debt, and there is no explanation as to how. They lost the final of the Champions League to Spurs, which was quite interesting. Also lost the Carabao Cup, but did win the Premier League. And it just, let's look at one of the smaller clubs. Let's go for Everton, who really did struggle. So they went into administration in January, came out of administration in February, and then the new chairman came in. If we look at their finances, we can see that that's been reset, which is understandable. They've got a new owner. You can accept that. I imagine a lot of their debt's gone. Leicester, if we look at their club details and finances, you can see that they are still struggling a little bit with their debt, but even they were only on minus 60 million, and they have not had a change of owner. So I don't really know what is going on with that in the game. I don't know where all this money has gone. They've still got insecure finances. I think the only way we can really see what is going on is by making me the manager of a club. If we start with Leicester, and just make me the manager of Leicester, we can have a quick look in their finances. So you can see this huge deficit in July, and then by August it was gone. 1 month it disappeared. Their profit jumped from minus £600 million loss to a £600 million profit. I mean, that makes... Where did this income come from? They got £685 million of income. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know how that's happened. again, you can see their expenditure was up at 600 million, but immediately replaced the year after with 685 million pounds. Now, if we look at their debt and loans, it could be we've got a 700 million pound loan. I mean, they've still got 1.6 billion pounds of debt. They've got a bank loan here for 654 million. So they must have just converted their overdraft into a bank loan. That's the only way I can see them doing this. The remaining interest on this loan, the original debt of 1 billion, they've got 797 million left. And their repayments per month are actually remarkably low, 10 million pounds a month on that one, which is 120 million a year, to be fair. That's quite a lot of cash. And they are going to be paying this off to the 30s, 40s. But it's really not that bad for them. When you look at the financial fair play, they're currently projected to be passing it. Their allowed loss of 19 million. Their current loss is 948 million. So I imagine they're going to be failing financial fair play again. But, I mean, I'm not really sure how they're getting away with that, especially the bigger clubs. Now, Leicester, I think, were one of the clubs who were hit with the administration. If we look at the Premier League again for last season, you can see, no, they weren't. So Leicester actually have passed financial fair play somehow from last year, which I just don't understand how that's a thing that has happened. How have they passed financial fair play? It must be this huge income they got, but that's a debt. So I look at the start date on a lot of these. This one started on the 4th of the 11th, 2018. So that would have been the start of last season that they took out their £188 million loan. But that wasn't enough. They had minus 700 million. At the moment, the club details say finances. Have they still got the big debt? No, 60 million. So there's still a shortfall somewhere. I have no idea. Maybe you guys can let me know. If I show you the income screen here, their income for last season, other, whatever other means, amount of income the club has received from various other sources. I don't know what that is, but they managed to get 672 million. Investments, the other part, I don't know where they've got 188 million pound investment from. 102 from TV revenue, that's explained. Everything else is explained. The expenditure last season, you've got 666 million pound other. Loan interest repayments, 152 million. So at least they are taking a big hit there. Player wages, 72 million. Tax, 21 million. Very little money going out on transfers. I mean, it's certainly dampened the amount of money being spent in the Premier League on transfers. There's no doubt about that. But they've not had to sell anyone to make the money up. They got £1 billion in income last year. That's how they've not failed financial fair play. Apparently they made a £150 million profit. I just don't understand where the income came in. It doesn't make any sense where that income came from. But that is probably a mystery I will never get to the bottom of. Now, if I just move myself to another club, like, let's go for Manchester City and just take a quick look at their finances, because they're going to be the other kind of end of the spectrum here. And just take a look at their finances. You can see that they similarly had this huge drop, which is where we changed them to the 700 million, and then it bounced up to 600 million. So they've got this huge profit come in as well. Their income was enormous, but has now dropped down, look. So this should be an awful lot higher, but it's down at like 18, 20 million. They're still getting 48 million in from sponsorship, but it's a lot less than they were before. Their income streams really struggling, 130 million in prize money, their biggest TV money. Not a lot I can do about that without changing the competition regulations. I could have removed those as income streams, but I want the teams that get promoted to get that income. And then you can see 54.40 for everything else. Their sponsorship way down on where it should be. Expenditure, other 727 million. Player wages, the other big one. But their loan repayments and interest, only 53 million pounds. So I don't know why their loans are much lower than the others, because they've still got £1.6 billion loan. Although this one, start date 8th of the 6th, 2019, that only started this month, and they are going to start paying £17 million a month on their loan. So that one hasn't actually kicked in yet, which is why they have probably got away with not having to worry about the money going out so much, because when they've got £200 million a year going out their pocket that they didn't have before, that is going to start to have a bit of an impact on them. So it'd be interesting to see what happens with that one. If we look at their projection, actually, that's what I didn't look at for for Leicester, and you can see their projection is supposed to go right the way down to kind of 880 million because they just don't have the money coming in. Their turnover's not getting better. Their expenditure might go down if they lower their transfer budgets. You can see the profit and loss getting much worse in the short term and then levelling out before starting to get a little bit better as the loans pay off and the interest payments aren't as much. Their wage costs are going to stay the same. Their transfer budget is just 400k. To be fair, they've not got a big transfer budget, £400,000 in the transfer budget, but their wage budget pretty much around the same mark. So that's an interesting screen to be looking at. I just want to have a quick look at their sponsorship and other. You can see their kit sponsors here, total value pretty low. These are new ones which have just come in, I think, because I would have deleted these otherwise. These are brand new ones that must have just come in. Although it backdates to kind of 2016, so maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Although I suppose those are under kind of 10 million, a lot of them, so that's why they're not as big. I might not have got rid of them because I think it displays them per year rather than the total value for each of these. So there's quite a lot of interesting stuff here if you like spreadsheets, and if you're playing Football Manager, I think you probably do like your spreadsheets. Now what I want to look at next is, let's take another team such as who didn't get hit with administration but doesn't have enormous income streams. That's the next thing to take a look at. We've looked at the top end, we've looked at Leicester Leicester didn't hit administration actually, so we could have a look at that. The next best one, let's go for Brighton next, because Brighton weren't hit with administration. The only way you can do this is by going into the club and becoming the manager. That's the only problem. We go to Brighton. And by the way, me taking over these clubs are not going to affect the game because I'll obviously reload and then go forward into the future. So we've just sacked Chris Hughton. Now again, looking at the finances, that's been converted into debt, I imagine. That's what the income is. It must just be bank debt. They're taking the overdraft and turning it into a bank loan instead. The income here, pretty low. They've got this is a conversion of the bank loan. Then you've got 97 million TV money, 17 million prize money, 30 million off season. They have nothing. Their sponsorship basically doesn't exist. Now their expenditure, 647 million. That's that big jump here. 40 million on player wages. Only 34 million on loan interest. If we look at their loans, so you can see that this bank loan repayment doesn't start till the 1st of July 2023. I don't know why that's the case, but they've managed to get away with it. That must have been the debt that they converted before. This one already being paid from the 1st of July 2018, 2.4 million a season. That's 600 million pounds, and that's only 2.4 million a month. That's only 3.3 million a month because they're such long loan terms, and even that one, 500k a month. So this is really low, and when we look at their projections, it's going to get a little bit worse, but nowhere near as bad as Manchester City. Turnover pretty stable, 152 million. Expenditure will go down. You can see here, really bad profit loss in the short term, then it will start to get better. Their wage costs will go down over time. Their transfer budget, 23 million at the end of last season, is now nothing and is going to stay nothing going forward. It's just going to fall off a cliff to nothingness and then continue, because that's when the new loan will come in and eat up a lot of their income. They don't have much by the way of sponsorship. It's all under £3-4 million. So Brighton are really going to struggle to have any money to do anything going forward because their money is going to be eaten up with loan repayments. And if we look at this loan repayments and interest, 34 million last year. That's going to jump up as soon as they start paying for that other loan. And this is going to be similar with all of the teams, but because they've managed to get deferred start dates to their loans, maybe they've had pay freezes. I don't know what capability the game has to manage these kind of debts, but because they've got that breathing space, it is going to take time before a lot of these clubs start to suffer over the long term. Now, the last one I'll just take a quick look at, because we are still in the first season, is Liverpool, because they finished second, and I'm just looking for whether any of these clubs have done anything else to get away with their debt. So we've just sacked Jurgen Klopp. Go to their finances. You can see again that similar spike here, which is them turning it into bank debt. Income's gone up, expenditure going up. Income, other than the other, you've got TV revenue, prize money, sponsorship down at next to nothing, players sold, everything else. We look at their expenditure. Loan repayments and interest, £143 million, and that's because they've got this £1 billion loan which is costing them 8.5 million a month because they've only got till 2030 to pay it back. So Liverpool are going to take a much bigger hit because of this huge loan repayment. They've got the £600 million loan here that they took to get rid of their overdraft. That's 2.4 million a month. So they've got 120 million a year at least, 11 million a month going out. But they do have a lot more money coming up in sponsorship. So again, you can see I didn't get rid of anything kind of around the 10 million mark. There were some that were up as 68 to 100 million in income, which is how the big clubs make most of their money. But you can see their projection is projected to get worse. Profit loss positive at the minute, about to go very negative and continue like that before coming back up again. But they're not going to take that big a hit. I don't think these kind of losses are going to be a huge problem. I think Liverpool can live with a minus £300 million bank balance because they'll just convert it into a loan again, which will cost them £2 million a season. So it's a long-term minor financial hit each year, if that makes sense. It's a big amount of money, but relative to their income from the prize money and things like that, it's a small amount of money each season going out of the club. So the impact on the big teams, I think, is going to be minimal, especially if they do sell a few players, which Liverpool really haven't. They signed Mihailovic for 16 million. They have had 34 million go out in the first season, but not a lot going on in this current season. So I'll stop there looking at the individual teams. So let's go about 5 years into the future. We're going to jump forward a bit and see what the long-term impacts of this are on the clubs. So we are now 5 years ahead. If we go to the second season here, you can see no club actually entered administration in the second season. They've pretty much sorted that problem out now, and you can see that Nottingham Forest and Bristol City got relegated immediately. They did not stick around for long. Aston Villa, though, managed to finish in 12th place. Southampton got relegated 3 points off West Ham, but Nottingham Forest and Bristol struggling to compete with the big teams financially, I would imagine. And you can see Arsenal actually won the league. City and especially Liverpool, who I said might start to struggle, fell down to 4th place. Chelsea and United still 5th and 6th, and Newcastle dropping down to 15th. We can maybe have a look at them and their finances soon. Now you can see Burnley, a delayed reaction here. They went into administration in their third season, finished bottom of the league. Cardiff also going down, Fulham there going down. And you can see Aston Villa now up to 9th place, starting to do well. City won the league. Spurs, Arsenal, Chelsea, United, Liverpool dropping even further back into 6th place. Newcastle recovering a little bit. The year after that, Brighton, West Ham and Blackburn going down. But you can see Aston Villa still now a mid-table team. Liverpool have recovered a little bit. Man City take the title. The Big Six still dominating at the top 6 positions. And then the most recent season, Leicester have been relegated as well. Manchester City winning the league with Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs, United and Chelsea in the top 6. And then a gap to everybody else. So it does look like we've returned to the status quo. If we just go down and look at the Championship over the last few seasons, we're looking at the big teams who've come down. You can see here Huddersfield finished in 4th place. Who else came down? Where are the other teams? I've gone completely blind on the table here. I can't remember who else went down. I'm just being absolutely stupid. So obviously Fulham also went down. They finished as champions at the top of the table. Cardiff also got promoted in 6th place. So only Huddersfield still down here. You can see them there finishing 4th. No other Premier League teams in the bottom half of the table. Southampton up there in 5th place as well. And then the next year, you can see Southampton actually hit administration again here and got relegated again. So they finished down in 22nd place. Another administration for them. They have really struggled financially. And I think that is definitely the second time that they have failed financial fair play. Well, they went into administration 2021. Maybe that's the first time they went into administration. It's their second new owner. They've not been able to deal with the debt at least, and getting relegated for another year. And you can see the following season, Premier League teams, Fulham down in 17th, Huddersfield in 13th. They're now proper Championship clubs. And in League One, just having a look at the league table, if I can actually do it. You can see Southampton did get promoted in 2nd place, so they're back up to where they should be, but they are really struggling. If we look at their finances, not their club details there. their club details, finances, you can see they do have a good amount of cash in the club. But what really matters is what is their financial fair play situation. If we make me the manager of Southampton, we just want to look at their income, expenditure and debt. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is now managing in League One with financially troubled Southampton. So you can see they had this huge drop here. They managed to recover a little bit. They then got another big spike up, and they've just kind of had their usual profit and loss. And they've been making a profit over the last year, actually, so that's not too bad. Income-wise, last season, their big income came from players sold, 51 million going out, 16 million from TV revenue, a little bit from sponsorship. Expenditure, though, 11 million on transfers, 16 million on loan repayments. So their club debt now down to 429 million. That's not too bad. That'd be the new owner coming in, I think, and wiping clean a lot of the debt. You can see 2021, the start date, still about 12-13 million a year, but nowhere near as bad as it would have been. You can see it's a company voluntary agreement. So that actually would have been them going into administration, and then the administrator setting up a loan repayment system of their £400 million debt, which if they keep getting relegated, they're never going to pay back £400 million. But you can see they're getting a bit more sponsorship income coming in now. They've got some good amounts of money coming into the club, varying on whether they get promoted or not. They've also got a club membership coming into the team, which does tend to happen when you go into administration. You can see that their income actually not projected to do too badly. Profit and loss was horrific, and seems, and they're still down in the losses actually here. Still losing about 2 million a month, but it seems to generally be okay. Wage cost predicted to go up for some reason, then come back down, and transfer budget also predicted to go up. So I think that they will probably be fine now they've been promoted back to the Championship, but it is still difficult for them. Now let's move back to a club like Manchester City and just take a look at what's going on. Pep still in charge of the club. If we look at their finances, you can see that they have been bouncing all over the place, but they're back to pretty much normal now. That was their biggest peak. Afterwards was minus 200 million, but that'd probably be player transfers. Income last season, they did manage to get 135 million from prize money, 128 from TV money. Merchandising, sponsorship still pretty low down at 60 million. And their expenditure, player wages, bonuses, tax, and they still got 37 million going out in debt repayments. But their bank loan now down to 750 million. Their projection still predicted to get a lot worse, but not, looking at 60 million, it's not a lot of money. Sponsorship money, they do still have some cash coming in now. A little bit more, 16, 19 million starting to appear as they renew a lot of those income streams. But this debt's an interesting one. I'm not sure quite why that's happened. If we look at the club information and their landmarks, a new owner came in. That's why. So they got a new owner come in, which just consolidated the debt for them. So you can see that Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan did leave, and a new owner, Ralph Kruger, came in. So I'm interested actually if they have got a sugar daddy anymore. They don't have a sugar daddy, so they're relying on their traditional income stream finally. They do not have a billionaire owner, which is really interesting. I think if we just have a quick flick through the other teams, you can see Manchester United failed their financial fair play regulations, and then they got a new owner this year, and then they failed financial fair play again. So I don't know if they were actually in Europe or not the last couple of seasons. They were this season. They've been in Europe every year. So even though they're filing financial fair play, I don't know what the punishment for that has been for them, but it doesn't look significant. Newcastle, new owner, Mike Ashley finally gone. Norwich, newly promoted, not an issue. Same for Nottingham Forest and Stoke. Spurs, they've had two new owners come in trying to deal with their debt problems, so that would have really helped them. Watford, they have not had a new owner come in, and they've also had to. They went into administration, they sold their youth facilities, came out of administration, and they've been banging around the place since then. We might want to take a look at their money. Same for West Brom. Wolves have just got a new owner, which will have sorted their finances out. You can see the same with Arsenal. Aston Villa failed financial fair play despite not having the huge debt put on the club. Bournemouth got a new consortium came in. Brentford, newly promoted. Chelsea have had 2 new owners come into the club trying to sort out their debt. Crystal Palace, new owners. Bill Camwright left, new chairman, but not a new owner for Everton. So they're another interesting case there. But most of the clubs now have had a new owner come in. Even Liverpool have had a new owner come in, which is really interesting. Now, what were the teams that didn't get new owners come in? So Everton, let's take a look at Everton, because they've never had a new owner, which means they should still have all of the debt that they had before. It might have been consolidated because they went into administration. So let's have a quick look at their finances. You can see here, not a lot of surprise there. It's about what you'd expect to be happening, in line with everything else. Expenditure last season, TV revenue, players sold, big income, prize money, sponsorship 24 million, really low. Expenditure though, loan repayments and interest really far down at 7 million. Their net debt now 124 million. Again, this is going to be the administrators coming in and turning it around for them. They just write off a huge amount of debt and put it down to a more manageable level. For whatever reason, I don't really know the detail of how administration works. I think the other club that was struggling a little bit were Watford. They hadn't had a new owner come in either. So if we just take a quick look at Watford and their finances, we can see income, pretty much where you expect there. Sponsorship really low at 8 million. Expenditure though, loan repayments and interest 20 million a season last season. So let's look at their debts and loans. You can see they've also got that administration. So they've not got a new owner, but their debt has been consolidated at 2 million nearly a month. And their financial fair play, they have failed it a couple of times, but it looks pretty stable now. So a lot of these Premier League clubs seem to be in a reasonable position now. A lot of them have got new owners, or they've got these voluntary agreements, which are just managing their debt a little bit. But if we have a look at the league's transfers, just go to the league and look at the transfer window over the last few years. You can see in the first year, very little money spent by the clubs. Some of the big teams were spending a bit of cash. The next year, Mane went for 70 million. Neves left. Callum Wilson went to Chelsea, 54 million. Big transfer that. Pedro went out, though, to make way for it. They also sold Bakayoko. Huddersfield, signing Benny Banangimi from Everton for 34 million. I don't know why Huddersfield think they had that much money to spend when they were getting relegated, but there you go. A lot of these players, there's a few Premier League teams in here, but there's not a lot of big name signings to the Premier League. There's only really Chelsea and Huddersfield who've spent that much cash. Brighton and Everton have had a little bit of money come in. But generally, these are players being sold by the various teams. Even the big clubs not bringing in that many players. The next season, Man City did sign Lewis Cook for 50 million. Ben Chilwell went to PSG, another big name leaving the league. Everton, Manchester United starting to appear on here. Man City are down here as well with a few signings. But generally, the money's still quite diminished. The following year as well, Spurs, the biggest signing. And that's not really recovered yet. Now, here we are. Liverpool and Spurs spending huge amounts of money. The big teams starting to appear at the top list with marquee signings. Bayern have been absolutely raided by the Premier League here. 4 players all going for nearly 30 million or more. Chelsea, a lot of players being offloaded on their books. I don't know what's going on with their team, but they seem to be struggling a little bit. They've got secure finances now, but they've just had the new owner come in. So they have had 2 new owners come into the team and must be struggling. I'd be surprised if they've got a sugar daddy at this point. And indeed they haven't. So none of the Premier League teams have sugar daddies, which is why these transfer numbers are staying reasonably low. If we have a quick look at Chelsea and their individual transfer history, just because they seem like an interesting case study. More money going out. A lot more money going out. That's 50 million going out. 140 million went out. Nobody coming in. 62 million going out. Nobody coming in. 76 million. Very little coming into the team there. So they've got a huge amount of money going out of the club. They're an interesting one to take a more detailed look at their finances. If I just have a quick look here at Chelsea's income streams and all the rest of it, then you can see from their finances, they've got a little bit of a balance, but they're struggling with their money here. 170 million in from other. So they're still converting debt or their deficit into bank loans. TV revenue, players sold, that was with 97 million players sold as well. Expenditure, Loan repayment, 100 million a year in loan repayments and interest. They've got 800 million pound net debt. 2.7 million a month going out. That's a new debt as well. With new owners coming in, that's a bank loan, 2.7 million a month. So they've really been struggling with their finance year after year. And you can see that it's just going down. Looks like it's finally going to start going up. Their transfer budget's going to start going up. They've got their money where they need it. Now they've had 2 new owners, but it's the only way they've been able to sort out their finances is by bringing in new ownership. So it's been reasonably interesting. It doesn't seem to have had an impact on the field. The only other thing to take a quick look at is the Champions League and see if English teams are still winning the Champions League or not. And you can see Spurs have won it twice. Man City have won it since. I don't know how Spurs have won it twice, but they have. And they've still got enormous wage budgets, huge big name players in the club not being sold. And that's because they seem to have got their finances in order a little bit. I'm going to have a quick look because it did say insecure there, and they've won the Champions League twice. Yet they've got insecure finances with a new stadium as well. So that one's worth a quick look. Ernesto Valverde getting sacked. You can see that was negative for a long time. Came back up. Income, 120 million, 120 million, 120 million. That's TV revenue, sponsorship and prize money bringing in £360 million. Expenditure, loan repayments and interest up at £100 million. You can see they've still got a net debt of 1.5 million. They've never fixed their finances. They've never had a new owner come in on the looks of that. If we look at their landmarks, they have had a new owner come in. They've had 2 new owners come in. And it's not fixed their bank debt. So they are a club to watch because they are winning titles, winning the Champions League with this enormous debt, enormous amount of money going out. They never changed these bank loans either. And they're bank loans. So the start dates here, both in 2018, and they're paying about 7 million a month. And they're paying it until 2038, 2043. That is going to have an impact on them. Their projections, though, look good, actually. So maybe it won't have an impact on them. Despite having 100 odd million going out of the club, it looks like they're going to be okay. Winning the Champions League here, you can see they've got big new sponsorship deals coming in. 20-year one here for £400 million. That must be stadium naming rights. But it looks like they're starting to rebuild their finances as well. So even Spurs, with their £1.6 billion of bank debt, I think that is £1.6 billion not in the club over the next 20 years that should be. That could have an impact. I just don't think it will because it's only about 100 million a year. So I think we're probably going to leave it there for now. Now, like I said, I see this only being a 2-part series. I think what I'll do next time is just jump back 30 years into the future or 20 years when the bank loans are ending and see where the Premier League is at, if they're still winning the Champions League, if they've still got the same clubs in there, or if things have started to be shaken up a little bit. You can see Aston Villa and Stoke moving up the table. They could continue to do that, but it doesn't look that likely at the moment. But drop a like on the video if you've been enjoying it. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're new. But until next time, see ya.